What if I told you that on a single, ordinary Tuesday, the fundamental limits of our reality were broken? Not by magic, not by some alien intervention, but by human ingenuity in a laboratory just outside New York. What if everything you thought was impossible, curing incurable diseases, predicting financial collapses, creating truly intelligent AI, suddenly became a question, not of if, but of when? Because on June 10, 2025, that is precisely what happened. While the world was going about its business, IBM pulled back the curtain on a machine that doesn't just calculate, it dreams. This is the story of how they tamed the most chaotic, fragile force in the universe and, in doing so, officially welcomed us into the quantum age. To understand the sheer magnitude of what IBM accomplished, you first have to understand the nightmare that has haunted physicists for nearly half a century. We call it the quantum problem, but a better name for it would be the universe's ultimate act of sabotage. Imagine trying to build the most intricate, beautiful sandcastle in the world. But you have to build it in the middle of a hurricane, on a shoreline where the tide is constantly coming in. That, in a nutshell, is quantum computing. The building blocks of this new reality are called qubits. Unlike the simple 1 south and 0 south of your computer, a qubit can be a 1, a 0, or, fascinatingly, both at the same time. This property, called superposition, is what gives quantum computers their godlike potential. A handful of qubits can explore millions of possibilities simultaneously. But this power comes at a terrible price. Fragility. Quantum states are like whispers in a silent room. The slightest disturbance, a tiny vibration, a stray particle of radiation, a fluctuation in temperature, just a fraction of a degree above absolute zero, and the whisper is gone. The qubit decoheres, collapsing back into a boring, classical 1 or 0. The magic vanishes. The calculation is destroyed. For years, this was the heartbreaking reality of the NISQ era, the noisy intermediate-scale quantum era. Companies, including IBM, were building bigger and bigger processors. We heard about machines with 50 qubits, then 100, then even over 1,000 with IBM's own Condor processor. It sounded impressive, right? But it was a bit of a mirage. These were physical qubits, and they were a noisy, chaotic mess. Trying to run a complex calculation on a NISQ machine was like trying to have a coherent conversation with 1,000 people all shouting at once. The errors would pile up so fast that they would overwhelm the actual answer. The runtime for any meaningful calculation was measured in microseconds. Before you could even blink, the system would collapse into a useless puddle of noise. The dream was right there, shimmering on the horizon, but every time we reached for it, it dissolved into dust. The solution, everyone knew, was something called fault tolerance, a way to make the quantum computer heal itself, to correct errors faster than the universe could create them. But the proposed methods were monstrously impractical. The leading theory, called the surface code, was a brute force approach. To create a single, stable, perfect, logical qubit, you might need thousands, maybe even tens of thousands, of those noisy physical qubits, all working together just to keep that one pristine qubit alive. To build a computer powerful enough to solve real-world problems, we would have needed a machine the size of a city, consuming more power than a small country. The dream of fault tolerance felt like it was 50 years away, a distant science fiction fantasy, until it wasn't. On that June morning in 2025, IBM didn't just unveil a new processor. They unveiled a new philosophy. They revealed that for years, while the world was obsessed with the brute force race for more qubits, their top minds had been quietly working on a smarter, more elegant solution. They called it quantum low-density parity check codes, or QLDPC. That name might sound incredibly technical, but the idea behind it is pure genius. Let me try to explain it with an analogy. Imagine your one precious, logical qubit thing. Doing the actual work is a VIP, a president you need to protect. The old surface code method was like surrounding that VIP with a crowd of 5,000 clumsy, untrained bodyguards. They'd get in each other's way, create a lot of noise, and while they might stop an obvious threat, it was an inefficient, chaotic mess. QLDPC codes are different. They are like assigning a team of 144 highly trained elite special forces operators to protect that VIP. Each operator knows their exact job. They communicate flawlessly. They move with precision and purpose. They don't just block threats, they anticipate them. They are a network of interlocking, intelligent guardians that use a fraction of the resources to provide exponentially better protection. This wasn't just a theory. This was a demonstrated, physical reality. IBM had cracked the code, slashing the overhead for error correction from thousands to one down to a stunningly efficient 144. And they built a home for this new code. The IBM Quantum LAN processor. This wasn't just another chip with more qubits slapped onto it. The LAN processor was designed from the ground up for this new era of intelligent error correction. It was a smarter architecture, a modular design built not for flashy numbers, but for one thing and one thing only: real, sustainable, fault tolerance. It was the moment the sandcastle was no longer being built in a hurricane, but inside a climate-controlled, self-repairing The game had fundamentally changed. The LAN processor, as revolutionary as it was presented not as a finish line, but as a cornerstone. IBM laid out a roadmap that was so audacious, so confident, it sent shockwaves through the entire tech industry. Think of it like building a great cathedral. The LAN processor, in 2025, was the meticulously laid foundation, the first proof that this new style of architecture was stable and strong. But then came the rest of the plan. BlueJay 2026. This would be the first floor. A system built on the LAN architecture, but scaled up, linking multiple processors together to create a more powerful, integrated system. This is where the first real-world, industry-specific problems would be tackled. Flamingo 2027. This is the next level. Adding more floors, more flying buttresses of computational power. The error correction would become even more robust. The number of stable logical qubits would grow, and the complexity of the problems it could solve would increase dramatically. And then, Starling 2029, the spire. The final, breathtaking piece of the cathedral. Starling is designed to be the watershed moment, a machine hosting 200 logical qubits. Now, 200 might not sound like a big number compared to the thousands of physical qubits we heard about before. But don't be fooled. A single logical qubit is a computational powerhouse. 200 of them, all stable, all working together in perfect quantum harmony, represent a computing capacity that is, without exaggeration, greater than all the classical computers on Earth combined. This is the machine that will solve problems that are, for us today, mathematically impossible. It's the machine that will achieve true quantum advantage, the point where it can answer questions beyond the reach of any classical supercomputer, now or ever. And how would they connect all these pieces? With another quiet innovation, a modular coupler design. This is the quantum superglue that allows them to link processors together seamlessly, allowing the system to expand not by building one impossibly large chip, but by creating a network of interconnected, specialized units. It's like building a city, not with one giant building, but with a network of skyscrapers connected by high-speed transit. It's scalable, it's flexible, and it's how you build a quantum supercomputer, that can continue to grow for decades to come. But here's the part of the announcement that, for me, was the most profound. The true leap forward wasn't just about correcting errors. It was about preventing them. The IBM system isn't just a brilliant doctor that can rush in and fix a problem. It's a quantum oracle. It has a layer of AI-driven control systems that are constantly monitoring the state of the qubits in real time. They are, in essence, watching the subtle weather patterns inside the quantum processor. Imagine the system feeling a tiny, unwanted magnetic fluctuation beginning to form in one corner of the chip. Before that fluctuation can grow and cascade into a decoherence event that would destroy the calculation, the system predicts it. It sees the future microseconds ahead of time. And it sends a perfectly calibrated microwave pulse to that exact spot to counteract the fluctuation, neutralizing the threat before it ever truly exists. This is the shift from reactive to proactive, from damage control to preemptive defense, and this is what transforms the machine's runtime. Remember those NISQ machines that could only run for a few pathetic microseconds? With this predictive error prevention, the coherence of the system is extended to minutes, then to hours, and eventually, 2 days. This is the key that unlocks the door to practical quantum computing. You can't discover a new drug or design a new battery material in a microsecond. You need time. You need the ability to run long, complex simulations. By turning their computer into a self-aware, self-stabilizing ecosystem, IBM gave it the one thing it needed most: the gift of time. Now, in the world of science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And IBM came prepared. This wasn't just corporate hype. They pointed to a landmark paper they had published in the prestigious journal Nature in 2024, which academically and peer review validated the incredible efficiency of their QLDPC code architecture. This wasn't a marketing gimmick. It was established science. They also had the endorsement of the scientific community's titans. John Preskill, the very physicist who coined the term NISQ era, publicly praised IBM's design, calling it a credible and powerful path beyond the noisy limitations he himself had defined. It was like the man who diagnosed the disease was now endorsing the cure. The MIT Technology Review, a sober and respected voice in the industry, didn't mince words, labeling it the single most significant advance in quantum computing in a generation. Suddenly, the world woke up. The competitive landscape, which had been a kind of slow-motion race, turned into an all-out sprint. Google, which had long focused on its own surface code approaches, was forced to publicly double down on its error correction initiatives, scrambling to show they weren't being left behind. Microsoft, always playing the long game with their exotic topological qubits, saw a more immediate conventional path to success gaining ground and had to reevaluate its timeline. Amazon, through its cloud service, AWS, had positioned itself as the Switzerland of quantum, a platform giving access to anyone's hardware. Now, they were facing a world where one company had a seemingly insurmountable hardware lead. And across the globe, in China and Europe, government agencies sounded the alarm. This was no longer just a scientific curiosity. A functioning, large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computer is a tool of immense power. It can break modern encryption, making it a matter of national security. Funding for quantum research, already high, went into overdrive. The financial markets responded in kind. IBM's own commitment of $6 billion toward quantum development acted like a starting pistol. Venture capital firms, who had been cautiously circling the quantum space, began pouring billions into startups. A whole new ecosystem began to boom overnight. Companies specializing in quantum software, error correction algorithms, and perhaps most critically, the specialized hardware. The demand for things like dilution, refrigerators, the ultra-cold cryostats that house the processors at temperatures colder than deep space and high-precision, microwave control systems skyrocketed. A new global supply chain was being forged, all to feed the construction of these new cathedrals of computation. It was a new kind of gold rush, but instead of digging for precious metals, we were building machines to mine the very fabric of reality. So, what does all of this actually mean? What will a world with fault-tolerant quantum computers look like? We are moving from abstract theory to tangible reality. In finance, forget high-frequency trading. Imagine algorithms that can run simulations of the entire global economy, identifying systemic risks and predicting market crashes with enough accuracy to prevent them. Imagine fraud detection systems so powerful they can spot a single illicit transaction among billions in real time. In pharmaceuticals, the way we discover new drugs is currently a slow, brutal process of trial and error. A quantum computer can simulate molecules with perfect accuracy. This means we can design a drug to combat a specific virus, like a key for a lock, in a matter of weeks, not decades. Personalized medicine, where a treatment is designed for your specific genetic makeup, becomes the standard, not a luxury. In materials science, do you want a battery for your electric car that charges in 2 minutes and has a range of 1,000 miles? Do you want a solar panel that is nearly 100% efficient? Or a catalyst that can pull carbon dioxide directly out of the atmosphere to reverse climate change? These are all material science problems. Quantum computers can design these materials at the atomic level, atom by atom, creating substances with properties we can barely imagine today. In logistics, for companies like FedEx, UPS, or Amazon, optimizing delivery routes is an astronomically complex problem. A truly optimized system could save billions in fuel/delivery times and dramatically reduce our carbon footprint. A quantum computer can solve this traveling salesman problem for a global network instantly. And in AI, this might be the most profound change of all. Quantum machine learning isn't just a faster version of what we have now. It's a fundamentally different way of learning. It could allow an AI to see patterns in data that are completely invisible to classical computers, leading to breakthroughs in fields we can't even predict. It's the difference between an AI that can recognize a face in a crowd and an AI that can understand the emotion behind that face. This is the world that IBM's breakthrough on June 10, 2025, unlocked. Not in 100 years. Not in The roadmap suggests the first of these applications could start seeing real-world use by 2026. With mainstream adoption and a true quantum-powered economy emerging around 2028 or 2029. The future is no longer a distant dream. It's on the calendar. Of course, a revolution this massive isn't just about machines. It's about people. With IBM alone planning to hire over 1,000 new quantum specialists by 2026, a massive talent gap has suddenly appeared. Universities are scrambling to create and expand programs to train the next generation of quantum engineers, algorithm developers, and systems integration specialists. Governments are pouring money into educational grants and research projects. This is a call to arms for anyone with a curious mind. The jobs of the future are being created right now. We don't just need quantum physicists. We need chemists, biologists, financial analysts, and programmers who can learn to speak this new quantum language, who can act as the bridge between the incredible power of these machines and the real-world problems we need them to solve. This isn't something to be afraid of. It's an invitation, an opportunity to be part of building the next chapter of human history. IBM has pulled the future forward. What we all thought was decades away is now staring us in the face. The fault-tolerant quantum era isn't coming. It's here. But as I step back and look at this incredible story, the lesson I take away isn't just about technology. It's about how we solve problems. For years, the approach to quantum computing was a brute force attack. More qubits, more power, bigger machines. It was a race of more. And it was failing. The breakthrough came from a place of elegance. From a smarter idea. The QLDPC code wasn't about more, it was about better. It was about stepping back from the chaotic battle and designing a more intelligent, more efficient system of defense. And isn't that a lesson for all of us? In our own lives, in our work, how often do we try to solve a problem by simply throwing more energy, more time, more brute force at it, only to end up exhausted and frustrated? How often do we get stuck in a noisy, error-prone way of thinking? Maybe the answer isn't to just try harder. Maybe the answer is to find a new approach. A smarter code. A more elegant way of organizing our efforts. To work smarter, not just harder. To protect our own focus and energy from the noise of the world so we can achieve a stable, coherent state and solve the problems that truly matter to us. So, I want to leave you with a couple of questions to think about. First, what is the biggest impossible problem you see in the world, or even in your own life? And what would it look like to stop attacking it with brute force? And instead, search for a more elegant, a smarter, a completely different kind of solution. And second, as we stand on the cusp of this new age, what part do you want to play in it? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope this story has left you feeling as inspired and as optimistic about the future as I am. Please take care of yourselves and be well. And if you enjoyed this deep dive and want to continue exploring the frontiers of science and technology with me, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time.